This is a special edition of the Bullet. We're recording this in the morning to meet my guest's schedule. So, without further ado, straight from Norfolk, Nebraska, is Jon Anderson, Nebraska Firearms Association Director of Media. Jon, thanks for carving time out of your morning to talk to us today, man.
And thank you for adjusting your recording schedule for me. I appreciate it.
So let's get started. Let's get started with this. If you're watching us live on YouTube or Facebook on the Polite Society podcast pages, go ahead and comment on those videos. We'll get those comments up and we'll discuss them while we're on the air. If you're watching us anywhere else, go to the Twitter and hit the Twitter machine, the tweet machine with the hashtag the bullet. Jon, I intentionally screwed up. It's not Norfolk, Nebraska for people that live in Nebraska, is it?
It just depends. You hear both when you come here. So, the old school folks all remember it being Norfolk, and there's a long story that we haven't got the time to tell. But there is a reason, just like every other town, there's a reason why they're not pronounced the way they look.
Sure. Well, it's somewhat the same as the state capital of my state of South Dakota. It's spelled
Sure.
Pierre. It's pier, like you dock your boat at the pier. That's how it's pronounced. Yep. Anyway, let's get started, man. I wanted to talk to you today. Nebraska has two bills, one good, one bad, that are making their way through the unicameral there. And let's start by talking about you got the negative one, a red flag bill that is currently in front of the unicameral. What's going on with that right now?
Hopefully, absolutely nothing. The Judiciary Committee hearing on that bill was last Friday, I think it was February 10th, and not a big turnout as far as folks coming to testify. They had 4 show up to testify in favor of the red flag bill, and 8 showed up to testify in opposition to it, and I don't believe they had any neutral. Maybe they had 1 neutral, I'm not sure. But worth noting, one of the 8 who testified in opposition to the bill was the newly elected sheriff of Douglas County. So we want to mention that he did testify neutral on the other bill that was heard a few weeks ago for constitutional carry, but he did come out strictly in opposition of red flags. So good to see that the sheriff is he's getting his priorities straightened out there, I do believe.
So, and let's be for those who may not live close to Nebraska, we've got people checking in from the West Coast. We got people checking in from Georgia, all over the place. Douglas County is what town in Nebraska?
Sure, that's where Omaha is. It's the most populated county. In fact, if you carved out Douglas County out of Nebraska, we'd have less than half our population.
Yeah,
So,
but
yeah.
10 times better gun laws. So,
Well, that's again, we're working on that.
all right. Get this one up there. Somebody and this, if you're watching in a group on Facebook, I don't get your name, just a Facebook user. There was 1 neutral, is what somebody is saying. So, how about the permitless carry bill there in Florida? Are you going to beat, there in Nebraska, are you going to beat Florida, be number 26?
Lord willing and the creek don't rise, we're going to be number 26. The great news about that, and if you're following along at home, first of all, the bill for the red flag law here in Nebraska, which was deceptively disguised as the adopt the suicide protection order act bill, but it doesn't have anything to do with suicide. It's flat out a red flag bill. So that is LB 482, and the constitutional carry bill this year is LB 77. Now, that did get voted out of committee, which is that sounds terrible. It got voted out, but it actually means it's great because it's not stuck in the committee. It is going for a full Senate debate. So since we only have one house, the way that the bills work here in our state, you have your initial committee hearing, which is designed to weed out all the bad ones and send the ones with merit on to a full debate. And then in Nebraska, the bill has to face three different sessions, I want to say, of full debate with the full Senate on the chamber, and so three potential filibusters is where we are. So we're very confident that we can overcome at least the first one, just because it has to go 8 hours, and I don't think that they have enough time. There'll be enough people in the queue to last the full 8 hours, so they won't need the full 33 votes to overcome a filibuster. We can pass it through the first round with just 25 votes, and we've got that just in co-sponsors alone of the bill. The next round is 4 hours, and the round after that is 2 hours. So the amount of time to filibuster does shrink down. So we still need to keep the pressure on all of our senators and encourage them very respectfully to please support the bill and give them some reasons why. And we know, of course, that there are a few senators here in Nebraska that absolutely, it doesn't matter if God himself would peel back the heavens and stick his head down and say, vote for this, they're not going to do it, and that's understandable. So we need to lean on the ones who maybe haven't quite made up their mind, and encourage those who have taken a position to co-sponsor the bill, and just encourage them to stand firm with that, and please vote for this bill. So it does a couple things. First and foremost, very simple. It removes the requirement for a permit to carry concealed, and just a handgun. It doesn't address other weapons, and that's the biggest. The biggest thing there is there's a lot of misinformation being spread. It's simply the same as our Concealed Handgun Permit Act, but it just removes the legal requirement for the permit. The other thing it does, though, it does create statewide preemption for firearms laws. So no subdivision of the state can have different laws than what the state has put forth, which means the current registration in Omaha would go away. And I know that law enforcement there are not a fan of such a notion, but most of us, most Omahans, along with most Nebraskans, are in favor of one set of rules, no matter where you are on the board.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And it's silly to have laws in one part, and then you cross a city line or a county border, and all of a sudden there's a whole different set of laws. You shouldn't have to deal with that.
well, and it's very amazing to me when we're out at a gun show or some other type of event, and we're speaking with the public, and the folks who don't live in Omaha overwhelmingly don't realize that Omaha has separate rules, or maybe they've heard that it has separate rules, but they don't know the different laws. For instance, if you take a handgun into Omaha and you don't have a concealed handgun permit or one from a different state that's recognized by Nebraska, you are required by law to register that handgun with the police department.
Mm-hmm.
If you purchase a handgun in Omaha and you don't have your concealed handgun permit, then you have to register it before you can even take possession of it, no matter where you live.
Yeah.
So, and they have a separate set of rules that they judge these off of. So there are extra prohibitions, I should say. There are people who are prohibited from getting their gun registered in Omaha and can't possess it there, who, if they leave the city limit, are just fine. They can possess it in any of the neighboring towns that are outside Omaha city limit. They're not federally prohibited. They're not committing a crime possessing a firearm. It's just that Omaha says, well, you've got some of these other things on your record that we also don't like. So it's the water's very muddy. And
Yeah.
LB 77 would clear all that up and just eliminate that. There's also a registry in Lancaster County. I don't remember now. Somebody out there maybe could give me the right details or correct me in the comments. But in Lincoln, it's either a Lincoln City ordinance or it's a Lancaster County ordinance that every firearm purchased there, or at least every handgun, that info goes to either the police chief or the sheriff. And so it's not a true blue registry, but yet it is. They know who's buying what and where they're going, which, again, that would eliminate such a thing from being the case there too. So
So the short thing I'm getting out of that for Nebraska is if you do not live in Lincoln or Omaha, do not go there to buy firearms. Buy them
Right.
from your local gun shop.
Buy them from your local gun shops, or have them shipped to your local gun shop and pay that dealer for the transfer fee.
There you go. Let's get this comment up here real quick. 500 Magnum, by the way, and I've said this almost every time he comments. Awesome name, awesome screen name for 500 Magnum. If you're against
And cool
law-abiding
icon.
citizens being armed, you're exactly who we need to be armed against.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yep. What is it that they say? When the government fears the citizens, there's freedom. When the citizens fear the government, there's tyranny.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I want to get a little bit into my trip to Pierre yesterday, and again, that's Pierre, not Pierre, but to my state capital. We had a bill that was introduced on the 2nd of February, two bills introduced on the 2nd of February, looked like they weren't even assigned committee. And then on Friday, they were assigned to the House Judiciary Committee. And then, oh, by the way, Friday afternoon, they decided we're going to have hearings on this Monday morning.
Wow.
And so, and in South Dakota, if you want to speak for or against a bill, all you've got to do is show up and sign in. You don't have to have an ID or anything. You just have to be there and state who you are when you start speaking. You sign up on a paper sheet when you get into the conference room, and then they'll call you. But in South Dakota, the red flag law and the safe storage law, it seemed to me they were trying to pull fast ones to get them in as quickly as they could, and so there wasn't so many people showing up, and they were largely successful. An attorney representing the NRA, Youth for, I want to say it was South Dakota Youth for Liberty, but I'm probably screwing that name up, and me were the people that showed up to testify against these bills.
Is that the Young Americans for Liberty? Is that?
That could be. That could very well be. But what is the process there in Nebraska? Can they schedule and put hearings in quickly like they did up here?
I think they can. It rarely happens. They and the I don't know. Honestly, I don't know the process for the scheduling. I don't know if the committee chair has anything to do with that or not. So having a friend, or if not a friend, at least not a foe, in the chair of any given, especially the Judiciary Committee, which is where most firearms laws go, that really helps. So for the last legislative session, which here in Nebraska is the last 2 calendar years, we definitely had somebody who was no friend of rights of firearm owners in any way, shape, or form as the chair, who is not there anymore, is no longer in the body. And so a brand new chairperson this year, and he seems to be very, what's the right word? Pardon the pun, a very straight shooter. So he's not politically, in our nonpartisan unicameral, we don't list our legislators with an R or a D or an I or an L or anything else behind their name. But he is registered with a D. But despite that, he seems to be a very fair man, and he's doing the job that you would expect a committee chair to do. And he doesn't care about those letters behind people's names. He doesn't care who's introducing a bill or how he's registered. What he cares about is, does the bill have merit constitutionally, and what do the testimonies of the Nebraskans have to say? So I really appreciate that, respect him for that.
Absolutely. The other, and this, I got a question after I went off the air yesterday. I talked about my testimony yesterday. I don't want this to be about what I did, but the red flag, no, excuse me, the safe storage bill in South Dakota when it was in the committee on Monday, and everybody testified. By the way, just to get in the nitty gritty, after the bill is brought up in committee, they give 15 minutes to, including everybody can speak. If you're for it, everybody that's for it gets 15 minutes, and that includes the sponsor of the bill, who is usually there and was this time. Everybody who's against it then gets 15 minutes, and after everything,
testimonies.
No, you get it was able to, what happens in a 2-hour meeting. They were able to take care of 4 different bills, and I didn't stay there for the whole thing. I only stayed there until red flag law died. The safe storage bill died 10-1. The red flag bill died 11-1. In both cases, there were 2 House members that were absent and so not voting. So
so they actually had their executive session, or excuse me, not executive, but they had their vote on the spot.
Yeah, they had it right in the meeting. Here. So yeah, this is the first time I was exposed to that sausage being made process, and I actually am very impressed with the way South Dakota does it. From a citizen standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. So the other thing that I told Susan, and I've been discussing it with a few friends of mine. After going through this process that I did on Monday, driving 3.5 hours just to get there, in the conference room for maybe an hour, and then 3.5 hours home, I'm seriously considering running against Representative Duba, who is the person that sponsors those bills, and unfortunately is my South Dakota state legislator. She's the House member from my district. And for her to sponsor those 2 pieces of garbage, and it just, you brought up at the beginning, and I hate to be just monologuing like this, but there's no way to avoid it. You brought up that your red flag law was brought up as suicide prevention there in Nebraska.
Yes.
And that's exactly what was pushing both the safe storage and the red flag law here, as the person introducing it pushed it. It was for suicide prevention. And, people that are going to commit suicide, they're very impulsive. And so if there isn't a firearm there to do it with, is there a bottle of pills? Is there a bridge abutment and a keys to a car?
That begs the question too. It would be worth doing some research into statistics in South Dakota. But how many people who have used a firearm as their means for suicide used somebody else's gun? Because if I own the gun, whether it's locked up in the safe or not, I've got the combination or the key to the safe. So a safe storage law only keeps unauthorized fingers from getting that. And don't kid yourselves, moms and dads. If you have, everybody think back to when you were a kid. If your parents had a liquor cabinet, you knew where the keys were, right?
Yeah.
If your dad had a stash of Playboy magazines someplace, you knew where those were stashed. I mean, kids know if you've got the combination to your safe written down someplace, your kids probably know where that's written down. And safe storage laws give a false sense of security because you put them behind the locked door of the safe, and you think the kids can't get to them, and you think the kids won't get to them, and you're lulled into being very complacent and not being vigilant. So then if you're not home and your kids are there with some friends, hey, do you want to see what's in my dad's gun safe? You want to see what my mom has locked up in the safe, on the dresser where her pistol is? And that's how accidents happen, because people got lulled into a false sense of security and complacency, and they're very disingenuous laws. If you're going to stop suicides, let's go to the root of the cause, not the tool. And now that I'm monologuing, let's bring up one more person. Do some research on the DC project. I believe she is the either Connecticut State Director for DC Project, or I believe she's in Connecticut. Mary Forges
Yep,
is her
she
name.
is she is the director for Connecticut.
Okay, so look up her story. I don't have links to point you to it, but if she had had a safe storage law in her state, she wouldn't be here today.
Yes.
So they, again, if it's going to cause the potential for harm, right? It's. I think that senators and Congress critters ought to swear a similar oath to doctors. First, do no harm.
Yes.
So first, do no harm to my freedom, or first, do no harm to my well being. And if it passes that test, then let's compare it to the Constitution.
Yeah. Let me get this one up here real quick. Same people that claim that guns are the number one death of children are the same people that line up in single file line at the abortion clinic. How convenient.
Well, they're also the people that are counting 19-year-olds as children.
Oh, even
So
you can be on
the
your
only
parents.
the only way that argument gets made is if guns became the number one killer of children last year, is if you count 18 and 19-year-olds and count a child as anybody who's under 20, and predominantly the 18 and 19-year-old deaths by bullet are gang related. So if you
Yep,
rule out the gangs and you actually count kids as not legal adults, 17 and under, then guns are not the number one killers of children.
they
You go
are.
back to automobiles.
They are very, very vanishingly small uh, numbers. Let me. This was supposed to be, by the way, and you just reminded me of this. Let me get
It's rabbit
this.
hole time. Let's go.
I'm telling you, man. There was a story that was supposed to be on the bullet yesterday. Rob Morse and I did not have time to get to it. Robert Reich, who was a big person in the Clinton administration, let me see if I can pull that up on my, because it's even for me a little small in that text. Robert Reich sent a tweet saying mass gun shootings in the U.S. and shows a greatly expanding number as you get closer to 2022. GunFacts responded and said, actually this is actually how dangerous the United States is. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this and show you the graph. And it may be a little bit hard to read, but the most dangerous state in the world, the most dangerous nation in the world is India when it comes to mass shootings, followed by Sri Lanka, Sudan, Pakistan, Burundi, Kenya, Bangladesh. And it goes way, 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 way down until you finally get to the United States. And so and where I'm going with that is stats don't lie. If you do them right, the stats will tell you the absolute truth. And it's if you exclude like you said gangs, the number of shootings goes down dramatically. If you keep people locked up in prison, don't let them out with soft bail.
Especially those who have been convicted of violent crimes.
Yeah, it will reduce the violent crime rate, whether or not they're using a firearm,
Right.
dramatically.
I find that to be quite disingenuous as well when politicians or news organizations talk about gun violence, because I've got a family member who was thankfully not killed, but there was no gun used when that family member was attacked, and it was just flat out blunt object trauma. And if that had been a death, our family would not have cared whether or not that animal used a gun or a knife or a club or hands and feet. It doesn't matter. Those of you who have lost a family member or a friend to a violent crime, it doesn't matter what the tool was. It doesn't bring your friend, your family member back. And violence just needs to be curbed, and the only way to curb violence is for the potential for greater violence to be done back to that person. So it's, the old saying that society's safer when criminals don't know who is armed. That's very true.
Yeah, and brought this up again yesterday. How many people would go duck hunting if the ducks shot back? So, let me get this one up. Fentanyl kills way more people
Yeah.
than guns ever has, and he also followed up 500 Magnum did with the government kills more people than anything. And let's be honest, the countries killing their own citizens is not a very good track record. And even in
No.
recent history, you don't have to go back to World War II. You can go back to the Vietnam War and Laos. You can go back to my brain is failing me today, but there are multiple examples of government deciding, look, this subset of people does not deserve to live, and they're gone.
Or Tiananmen Square in China
Yeah,
back in the late '80s. I can't remember the exact year, but students protesting who they got told to move, they didn't move, and some of them paid with their lives too.
including, and I read this, oh, I suppose this is a little more than a year ago, the famous uh, photo of Tiananmen Square where the young man is standing in front of the tank and the tank does not move, does not run him over. He stares the tank down and wins. He actually was that young man was killed shortly thereafter, but news never left China. So,
Right.
um,
So real quick, I want to mention too. Sorry to jump in
no,
here, Paul, but
yeah, do it.
we actually have another really great bill here in Nebraska that hasn't gotten a lot of fanfare, but we do need Nebraskans to let their legislators know that they support bill number LB 194, and that is adopt the Second Amendment Preservation Act. And so that would just be, along other states that have done the same thing. It would make it a crime for any law enforcement officer, from the state patrol all the way down to city police. Number one, it would be illegal for them to enforce an unconstitutional law as far as dealing with firearms. Also, it would prevent the federal government from commandeering any state resources, including personnel.
Very, very
So,
cool.
unfortunately, it doesn't have the teeth that some states have, making it a prosecutable crime against those federal agents. But at the very least, it protects all of our law enforcement officers within the state, and well, not just law enforcement, but any personnel within the state. It protects them from having to be commandeered, and also says that even if you've got a police officer who really doesn't like your rights to own guns, they can't do anything about it here in our state. So we want to get that one passed as well. So LB 77 and 194, please vote yes. LB 482 hopefully never gets a chance to be voted on in the Senate, but hopefully that one just dies in committee. And it's worth noting too, 13 people showed up to testify, four in favor, eight against, and one neutral. They also had 125 online comments submitted. You can't write physical letters and send them in anymore for these bills, but there's an online comment process on the legislature website. And they had 125 letters or online comments submitted. Three supported the bill and 122 against. So
Wow.
I'm proud to list mine among the 122, and my wife as well. So 120 other people besides us wrote in an online comment. So good job, Nebraska.
Very, very cool. We are down towards the bottom of the hour. If you would please tell everybody about Get Off My Lawn and anything else you want to plug, man.
Absolutely. If you want to help Nebraska Firearms Owners Association in our quest, we are 100% volunteer run and donation funded. So you can go to nebraskafirearms.org, and you can become a member. You can also donate some money there. We don't beg for your money, but we will sure take it, because we do have some stuff that we need to pay for coming up in the next year. If you want to get our email updates, you need to email us right now. Our opt-in program is not working yet, or our automatic program, so you have to opt in. So send us an email to info@nebraskafirearms.org and just ask to be put on the email list. You don't have to be a Nebraskan to be a member. You don't have to be a Nebraskan to get the emails, and you don't have to pay any dues. It's free to join no matter where you are. As far as my personal stuff, you can find me at YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, Sandhills Media, every Thursday night through this month. And starting in March, we're going to switch it up and move to Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock Central Time, 8 p.m. For the Get Off My Lawn podcast, where we talk about some gun stuff, sometimes not gun stuff. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's thought-provoking. Tomorrow night, which if you're watching this on the replay, it'll actually be tonight, Thursday, at 8 p.m. Central Time. We're going to have Amanda Suffacool and Rick Ector on to talk about their bids for NRA board. And I just want to throw a quick shout out that, to Meet the Pressers and Riding Shotgun with Charlie, I got Amanda and Rick before you did. So just saying. You're muted, Paul. I can't hear you.
I had Amanda on long before you did, man.
Yes, you did.
All right.
But not about this.
All right, folks. Well, yeah, believe it or not, she made it public for the first time when she was doing the bullet. So, her run for the board. Anyway, we are way out of time. Thanks again, John. If you're watching us live, come join me at 5 p.m. today when Dan Wass will do the bullet. If you're watching us on replay, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.